Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
High above the quiet fields and slow-turning trees, the sky gathers thoughts we cannot see. It starts softly, with gentle wisps of vapor curling like breath on a winter morning. Invisible things begin to rise, tiny droplets, fragments of air, dust from faraway places, grains of sea salt left behind by long-forgotten tides. As the warm earth exhales, its breath drifts upward, climbing slowly through cooler and thinner layers of sky. These tiny particles meet the colder air and something begins to shift. Water droplets cling to them, embracing specks of dust as if each one holds a secret. And as more and more gather, they build a cloud, not just any cloud, but one that grows tall and deep, rising like a mountain in the sky. This kind of cloud is called a cumulonimbus, a name as heavy as the storm it carries. It can stretch higher than the tallest mountain, pressing against the edge of the stratosphere. But even before it roars, even before the thunder finds its voice, something quiet and strange is happening deep inside. Inside the belly of the cloud, where light is dim and winds twist like underwater currents, water droplets and ice crystals begin to collide. These are not peaceful collisions. They are brisk and tumbling, like dancers bumping in a crowded hall. Each bump and jostle transfers tiny charges, microscopic bits of electricity pulled from one particle and passed to another. Bit by bit, this dance separates the charges. Heavier ice and hailstones fall toward the base of the cloud, carrying negative charge with them. Lighter ice crystals and droplets rise, drawn upward by strong winds, and they carry positive charge. Over time, the cloud splits itself into layers of invisible tension, positive above, negative below. This separation is like stretching a string. The longer it holds, the more it hums with potential. The cloud is no longer just a drifting shape in the sky. It has become a storm, storing energy the way a seed stores the memory of spring. Sometimes, deep within that cloud, you can almost feel the hush of waiting. The air becomes still, as if the world is holding its breath. The leaves stop moving. The birds go quiet. Dogs and children look upward with ancient knowing. It is the waiting space before a song is sung, before a story begins. The earth below feels it too. As the negative charges gather in the bottom of the cloud, the ground answers by pulling up positive charges to meet them. Trees, rooftops, and even your own skin may quietly hum with electricity, reaching upward without a sound. There is no thunder yet, no lightning, only this quiet, invisible reaching, a slow, electric longing between sky and earth. And still the cloud continues to charge itself, drop by drop, spark by spark. The wind grows stronger inside it. Droplets freeze, melt, freeze again. Each movement adds a whisper of electricity to the storm's growing heart. And though we cannot see these charges move, we can feel the heaviness in the air. It wraps around us like wool. Our hair may lift gently from our skin. Our breath may seem shallower, as if the very sky is leaning in to listen. Scientists study these clouds with tools and numbers. They fly planes through storms to measure the patterns. They fire rockets with wires into the clouds to coax out lightning. They watch, with careful eyes and patient minds, how this quiet energy builds. But even they describe it in hushed tones, as if the storm has its own slow poetry. Inside the cloud, the air is not silent. It hisses with invisible wind. It churns like a sea inside the sky. Some droplets are so small that 1,000,000 of them can fit inside a single raindrop, and each one might carry a whisper of charge, passed like a note between dancers in a spinning storm. It is here in this high and hidden place that the cloud becomes something more than water and air. It becomes a living question. When will the spark leap? When will the charge become light? But not yet, not here. For now the cloud waits, rising higher, filling deeper, a soft gray giant humming with unspoken energy. You can almost hear it breathes. Now imagine drifting deeper into that waiting sky, where droplets swirl in silence and every gust of wind carries stories too small to hear. The storm cloud above is not just a vessel of rain, it is an orchestra of motion and charge, rehearsing a performance as old as the earth. And though no flash has yet broken the sky, the instruments are tuning, the strings are tightening, the air is thick with the music of potential. Inside the cloud, invisible highways of wind spiral upward and down. Warm air rises from below, lifting with it water in its gentlest form, vapor, soft as sighs. Colder air pushes from the sides, shaping the cloud like a potter's hands, molding it taller, wider, stronger. And all the while, droplets freeze and fall, bounce and break, exchanging electrical charges in the sky's slow alchemy. It may seem strange that such powerful sparks, so bright, come from something as small as a falling droplet or a fleck of ice. But the sky is patient, and it understands that tiny actions, repeated many times, can build great things. Every collision inside the cloud adds another piece to an invisible puzzle, and the more the droplets tumble and crash, the greater the separation of charge becomes. Deep within the cloud, where sunlight cannot reach, the space is alive with this silent shuffling of energy. Positives drift high, negatives settle low, and in between is a growing tension, thin as a thread and strong as steel. This electric layering builds like breath held in the chest, a fullness that waits for the moment it must be released. Sometimes the storm holds this charge for hours, other times only minutes. The timing depends on many things, on the temperature of the ground below, the shape of the cloud, the movements of the wind. But always the charge builds gradually, like a tide rising toward the moon, and all the while the earth listens. You see, the earth is not separate from the storm. It is part of the circuit. As negative charge gathers in the lower part of the cloud, the surface of the earth begins to respond. Positive charges in trees, buildings, and even in our own bodies stretch upward like sunflowers toward the sky. The air between them becomes more conductive, more ready to let energy pass. This growing readiness is called the electric field. It is invisible but powerful, and when it becomes strong enough, when the difference between the charges above and below is too great to contain, the sky begins to search for a path, a way to balance, a place where energy can leap. But before that leap comes, before the brilliant spark, the cloud continues its quiet preparation. There are no drums, no shouts, only the rustling of air and the whisper of droplets spinning in place. And far above, in the coldest parts of the cloud, tiny ice crystals begin to branch like snowflakes, delicate and symmetrical, their arms reaching outward into the growing storm. These crystals are key to the charge. When they collide with other particles, when they bounce and break and glide, they carry electrical differences with them, helping to separate the cloud even more. In this way, the architecture of the storm becomes more intricate, more layered, a tapestry of motion and charge shaped by invisible hands. Sometimes the cloud stretches so tall that it brushes against layers of the atmosphere where strange things happen. Here, particles from space, cosmic rays, may trigger further separation. Scientists believe that even the smallest disturbance from beyond Earth can help ignite the storm's electric ballet. The universe itself whispers into the cloud. From the ground, you might see only a darkening sky, a heavy stillness, a flicker of distant light. But above you, the storm is sculpting itself. Each moment deepens the divide between positive and negative, sky and ground, cloud and earth, and yet still it waits. The air may begin to smell different, sharper, like iron or wet stone. This scent comes from ozone, a special kind of oxygen formed when electricity begins to dance in the air. It is a quiet signal, a soft breath before the cry, nature's way of saying something is coming. Even animals can feel it. Birds fly lower, cattle gather, cats press against window panes. All of life seems to pause before the sky opens, tuned to a frequency we can no longer hear. But once, long ago, we too listened this way. Our ancestors knew the feel of a charged wind, the hush before lightning. They read the sky as if it were a book of signs. And the storm cloud, heavy now with tension and potential, continues to grow. It spreads across the sky like a thought too big to hold in one mind. It shadows rivers, mountains, and fields, knitting them into its story. And always within, the charges separate further, drawn by nothing but difference, by the invisible pull of balance yet to come. Inside, pulses of energy begin to shoot downward in fits and starts. These are the first steps of lightning, though we cannot see them yet. They are called leaders, tiny fingers of electricity that reach toward the earth in jerking, uncertain movements, like someone feeling their way in the dark. And the earth responds, sending pulses upward, eager to meet them. But even now, the cloud holds its breath. These first leaders do not always complete the path. Sometimes they fade, turn back, retreat. The sky is cautious. It waits for the right moment, the perfect distance, the clearest path. Only then will it release what it has been holding. And so we return to the waiting. The field is ready. The trees stand tall. The cloud hums softly, like a bell that has not yet been rung. The charge inside it is immense, but the moment of release is not yet here. You can feel the pause, the storm's slow heartbeat, the heavy air, the thick silence. It is a space between breaths, a lull before awakening. A silence that stretches until it must break. The thunder waits. And then quietly, almost shyly, the sky decides it is time. The balance has tipped. The charge can no longer wait. From deep inside the cloud, a thread of electricity begins to fall, crooked, stuttering, uncertain. It is the leader, reaching down from the cloud's dark belly in search of something to touch. It does not come in a straight line. It twists and forks, pausing and hesitating like a finger brushing across the skin of the world. As it nears the ground, the earth sends up its answer. A positive streamer leaps skyward, fast and invisible. When these two fingers meet, one falling, one rising, the connection completes. In that instant, the sky remembers its power. The lightning we see is not the first step, but the reply. It is the return stroke, racing back up the path the leader carved, so fast that it lights the sky in less than a blink. It is not a gentle glow, but a fierce, brilliant ribbon, hotter than the surface of the sun, burning across the sky's fabric in a bright, electric exhale. And yet, even in its brightness, there is a kind of grace. The lightning flickers only for a moment, a brief window into the storm's heart. Then darkness returns, the air shudders. A breath later, the thunder follows. Thunder is not the voice of the lightning, but the sound of air healing itself. When lightning moves through the sky, it heats the air so quickly that it expands faster than sound can keep up. That expansion creates a shockwave, a rolling, rumbling echo that we call thunder. It begins as a crack and trails away in a deep, distant murmur. If lightning is the sky's heartbeat, then thunder is its slow and thoughtful breath. And now, the rain begins to fall. The first drops are heavy, spaced far apart, like the first words in a long-awaited story. They tap against leaves and rooftops, against windows and skin. The air cools, the smell deepens. The world becomes softer under the rain's rhythm. Each raindrop is a traveler, shaped by the storm it falls from. Some are born in the upper reaches of the cloud, forming around ice and tumbling down through layers of warmth. Others begin lower, gathering other droplets as they fall, growing round and full. Each one carries the memory of collisions, of charges, of the electric dance that shaped the cloud above. And though the lightning may seem to steal the show with its brightness and roar, it is the rain that brings the storm's story to its end. It is rain that soothes the charged earth, that cools the air and nourishes the ground. It is rain that balances the ledger of the sky. As the storm unfolds, the charge begins to fade. Each strike of lightning releases a little more tension. Each drop of rain pulls the energy downward, grounding it, settling it. The wind that once screamed inside the cloud slows to a whisper. The layers of charge dissolve. The cloud softens. The sky begins to breathe again. Sometimes, after the last flash has faded and the final thunder has rumbled into silence, the air feels different, emptier, but clearer. There's a lightness that follows a storm, a kind of gentle quiet that settles over the landscape like a warm blanket. The grass is darker now, wet and clean. The leaves shine. Puddles gather on the ground, mirrors reflecting a sky no longer heavy with thought. The storm has passed, but it leaves behind its memory. In the soil, in the air, in the soft shimmer on the bark of trees, in the silence of animals that now stir once more, in the deep breath the world takes after a long-held pause. And still, high above, the cloud drifts away, unraveling at the edges, growing lighter with every mile. What was once full of fire and potential now stretches into pale, forgetful mist. The electricity has gone, the storm has spoken, the balance is restored. But somewhere else far from here, another patch of warm air begins to rise. Another cluster of droplets forms, gathering around dust and salt and light. And somewhere in that gathering, a small charge is born, a single, quiet whisper in the chest of a new cloud. This is the cycle, the gentle pattern of the sky. It builds and breaks and builds again. It charges up with motion, with difference, with collision. And when the tension grows too large, it must release, not with anger but with purpose. Even now, long after the thunder has faded, the traces of the storm remain. You may see them in the way a tree leans toward the breeze, in the soft drip of water from a windowsill, in the hush that follows a lightning strike, as though nature herself were taking a moment to listen. Storms are not wild by chance. They are shaped by physics, by temperature and wind, by the pull of positive and negative across the fabric of the sky. And yet, for all their science, they still feel alive, full of personality, of rhythm, of meaning. They arrive like visitors, leave behind their stories, and vanish into the air. To understand. The charge inside a storm is to understand how the sky thinks, not in words but in tension, not in sentences but in pulses. The atmosphere holds its memories in moisture and motion, in the invisible patterns that guide each spark. And so the next time the sky darkens and your skin tingles with that electric hush, you may remember what builds above you. A gathering of droplets, of charges, of tiny collisions that whisper towards something larger. You may remember that before the rain, before the lightning, before the thunder, the storm is just a question waiting to be answered. And when the spark finally leaps and the rain finally falls, it is not an ending but a sigh, a return to balance, a release of breath held too long. The thunder waited. And then it spoke. High above the oceans and forests, where the sky folds into itself in soft grays and quiet silvers, clouds begin to gather once more. They do not arrive all at once. They drift in slowly like thoughts coming to rest, each one spun from the rising breath of the earth below. Water vapor lifts, climbs, expands. The sun warms the surface, and invisible rivers of air spiral upward, taking warmth with them. And where that warm breath meets the chill of the upper atmosphere, it cools and curls, becoming droplets, becoming mist, becoming clouds. But not just any clouds. These are the breathers, the ones that inhale sunlight and exhale storms. They live in the most restless parts of the sky, fed by heat, shaped by pressure, stirred by unseen winds. As they grow, their bellies darken. Their tops stretch into towers, icy and high. These are not lazy summer clouds drifting idly by. These are storm breathers, alive with motion, charged with potential. Within them, a strange secret begins to take shape. It begins with a collision. A single droplet, falling fast, bumps into another, rising slow. One is colder, one is warmer. One is heavy with ice, the other still fluid. When they meet, something is exchanged, not just moisture, not just mass, but charge. A sliver of electricity shifts from one to the other, a subtle rearrangement of energy. And in that tiny handoff, the cloud begins to change. This process repeats thousands, millions of times. Each droplet, each crystal, a participant in the cloud's hidden conversation. Positive charges drift upward, rising with the lighter crystals, like breath held in hope. Negative charges sink, carried by the weight of hail and heavier ice. And slowly, silently, a separation grows. From the outside, the cloud looks like a single being, but inside it is divided. A quiet tension spreads from layer to layer, a field of opposing forces. It is this contrast, this difference in charge, that gives the storm its secret heart. The storm is not angry, it is not wild, it is simply reaching for balance in a world that has become uneven. This separation of charge is invisible, but it is vast. In a fully developed thunderstorm, the difference between top and bottom can be measured in millions of volts. It is enough energy to light entire cities if only we knew how to hold it. But the storm does not hold, it waits, and in waiting it prepares. The wind rises inside the cloud, swirling and folding like a breath drawn inward. Warm air rushes in at the bottom, lifting more vapor into the mix. Cold air descends from above, curling around the sides. These motions fuel the storm's growth, sculpting it into towering shapes, into the kind of cloud that can touch both Earth and the edge of space. And as the cloud stretches, the charge deepens. The sky darkens not because the sun has vanished, but because the cloud has grown so dense that it swallows light. Beneath it, the world feels quieter. The wind shifts direction. Animals look up. The air begins to press against the skin, heavy and warm, like a blanket thick with waiting. Something stirs that cannot be named. Even before a single flash of lightning appears, the cloud has already become electric. Static builds along the ground, on rooftops, treetops, even the tips of grass. If you were very still, if you knew how to listen, you might feel it humming in your bones. You might sense that the cloud above you is not just passing through, but watching, breathing, holding something deep inside. Scientists know how this charge builds. They know the physics of droplets and collisions, of updrafts and ice. They measure it with instruments and capture it in models. But even they admit, something in the cloud remains mysterious. The storm is not just a machine. It is a process that feels alive, a cycle that holds its own rhythm and breath. The cloud breathes in warmth and releases lightning. It inhales moisture and exhales rain. It carries the charge of the sky not like a burden, but like a secret, passed from droplet to crystal to ice. And in that secret lies the storm's strange beauty. It does not move with urgency. It does not hurry. Every motion inside the storm is deliberate, even. Graceful collisions are not chaotic but essential. The wind does not tear the cloud apart. It shapes it, smooths it, gives it its soaring spine. And all the while, the charge continues to build, whispering between particles, waiting for the moment it can leap free. Sometimes the cloud sends test sparks within itself, flickers of light that do not touch the ground, but dance from one layer to another. These are intracloud flashes, internal discharges that help shift the energy around. They are not mistakes, they are practice. The storm is learning how to speak. And still, the world beneath waits. You can feel it in the quiet moments before the first thunder, the stillness of leaves, the heaviness of the breeze, a pressure behind the eyes, a tingling in the skin. The atmosphere is thick with possibility, the cloud is full, and the secret charge it holds has almost reached the point where it must be released. But not yet. The cloud continues to breathe, updrafts surge through its core, droplets rise and fall, freezing and melting and colliding again. Each one a messenger, a conductor, a bearer of charge. The layering deepens, the imbalance grows, and the earth listens, offering its own charges in return, positive ones drawn up from rock and soil, as if the ground itself were lifting its hands to meet the sky. What comes next is not destruction, but connection. The storm breathes, and in its breath it holds the promise of light. Let's drift deeper into the body of the storm-breathing cloud. Here, high above the world and far from the reach of stillness, the sky is alive with quiet patterns. The cloud is not just a container for water and wind, it is an engine of exchange, a flowing field of temperature, pressure, and charge. Inside, everything is in motion, and every motion matters. The updrafts at the storm's heart grow stronger, warmer, more insistent. They carry water vapor high into the cold places of the atmosphere, where it cools and transforms into droplets and ice. As the droplets rise, they pass through layers of the cloud, each with different temperatures, each with its own dance of particles. This layering is delicate and vital. It creates the environment for charge separation, the invisible sorting of energy within the cloud. Some droplets freeze instantly, becoming tiny spheres of ice. Others cling to dust, to pollen, to fragments of salt from the sea. Still others hover on the edge of transformation, cold enough to freeze but held in liquid form by the surrounding currents. These supercooled droplets are particularly important. When they strike solid ice particles, they freeze on contact, and in doing so, release a small amount of heat. This heat fuels more rising air, feeding the storm further, allowing it to grow taller, broader, deeper. And in the midst of all this building and motion, the droplets continue to collide. Each collision, small as it may be, transfers a flicker of electricity. Positive charges move one way, negative the other. Lighter particles tend to carry positive charge upward, while heavier ones fall with negative charge. It is a quiet sorting, like silt settling in water, slow but sure. The result is a cloud with a heart full of imbalance, a top filled with one kind of energy, a bottom filled with another, and tension strung between them like a drawn bow. This is the storm's breath, not just air, not just wind, but charge, gathered, layered, waiting. Outside the cloud, the air watches. Beneath it, the earth responds. When the lower part of the cloud becomes strongly negative, the ground begins to mirror it by gathering positive charges. These are not large bolts or visible arcs, but soft whispers of energy drawn upward into trees, buildings, mountaintops, and the very surface of the soil. It is as if the earth is stretching to meet the sky. This reaching continues quietly as the electric field between cloud and ground strengthens. And the stronger it becomes, the more the air between them begins to change. It becomes more conductive, more willing to allow a spark to leap through it. This shift is the final preparation, the last breath before the exhale. Sometimes lightning forms entirely inside the cloud. Sometimes it leaps from one cloud to another. But the most dramatic flashes, those that strike the ground, begin as invisible fingers probing downward. These are stepped leaders, tiny channels of negative charge extending from the cloud toward the earth in jagged, uncertain lines. They move in bursts, pausing and branching as they go, like roots searching for water. These leaders cannot be seen with the naked eye. They move in silence, and their light is too faint and fast to catch. But their path is everything. They trace the route that the lightning will follow. They search for the most direct connection between sky and ground, guided by the structure of buildings, the shape of trees, the small differences in the earth's surface. And then, when a leader comes, close enough, just a few hundred feet above the ground, a positive streamer rises to meet it. This is the Earth's reply, the reaching answer to the storm's descending hand. When they connect, the channel is complete. The current flows and the sky lights up. But that is the moment of release, the moment the storm breathes out. Until then, the cloud holds its breath. Inside it, intracloud lightning may flash, releasing tension between the upper and lower parts. These flashes light the sky from within, sudden and soft like heartbeats in the dark. They do not strike the earth, but they matter. They are the cloud's way of shifting energy, of testing its voice before it speaks aloud. And always the droplets fall. Some freeze, others melt. Some join larger raindrops, others remain suspended. Hailstones may form, layered and round, rising and falling with the updrafts until they grow too heavy to hold. Their weight helps carry negative charge downward, deepening the separation between layers. Their movement is like punctuation in the storm's unfolding story, each stone a small exclamation of energy and mass. Below, the air grows more still. The birds have hidden, the insects have gone quiet, the trees seem to wait, their leaves turned upward. Even the ground feels different, its surface lightly charged, its mood changed by the presence of the cloud above. The sky is not just full of water, it is full of possibility. And through it all, the cloud breathes. It is alive with cycles, alive with memory. Every breath it takes carries the story of evaporation and condensation, of wind and warmth and return. Every droplet within it has traveled a journey, from sea to sky, from sky to cloud, from cloud to storm. This is the poetry of the storm-breathing cloud. It builds itself from pieces of the world. It gathers warmth and transforms it into motion. It takes invisible vapor and makes it visible. It turns difference into tension, tension into light. But the light is still waiting. The storm is not yet finished. The breath is not yet released. The cloud continues to swell, to layer, to hold its hidden charge. And beneath it, the world continues to wait, not with fear, but with awe. Because what comes next is the storm's reply, the spark that reveals its secret heart. Then when the tension becomes too much for the air to hold, when the space between cloud and earth tightens like a string pulled to breaking, the sky finally speaks. A stepped leader dives toward the ground, invisible, searching. It moves in jagged steps, branching and turning, feeling its way down from the charged base of the cloud. Each step is a question, a probe, a possibility. Below, the earth answers with its own streamers, thin, upward-reaching threads of charge, rising from treetops, rooftops, stones, and blades of grass. When one of these answers connects with the leader, the path is complete. The charge releases. Lightning flashes. It moves not down, but up, faster than the eye can follow, brighter than the sun, burning through the air with sudden fire. The return stroke surges from ground to cloud along the path the leader carved, lighting the channel like a vein of light. In that moment, the sky's secret charge becomes visible. It reveals the breath the cloud has been holding. It empties the storm of its silent waiting. And just as quickly, the light is gone. But its echo remains in the air. The heat of the bolt, hotter than the surface of the sun, causes the surrounding air to expand violently. That expansion creates a shockwave, which we hear as thunder. Thunder travels more slowly than light, rolling out across the sky in soft rumbles and sharp cracks, depending on the shape of the bolt and the layers of the atmosphere it moved through. It is not the voice of anger. It is the sound of balance returning. And with that release, something shifts. The cloud begins to soften. The charge that once divided its layers now starts to fade. Lightning does not happen only once. In many storms, the process repeats, charge rebuilding, leaders descending, sparks releasing, again and again until the imbalance is spent. Each strike is a pulse in the storm's long exhale. Each bolt brings the cloud closer to rest. Rain begins to fall more steadily now. The droplets that once rose on warm currents now descend in rhythmic patterns, pulled by gravity, shaped by wind. They are no longer just part of the storm, they are its conclusion. Rain is the soft answer after the sky's loud question. It is the return of moisture to the earth, each drop carrying with it a memory of the storm that made it. And in this quiet rainfall, the air changes. The scent of ozone fades, replaced by petrichor, the earthy fragrance that follows rain on dry ground. This scent, beloved and ancient, is caused by oils and spores released from the soil, awakened by the water's touch. It is a reminder that the storm, even with all its electricity, is part of the cycle that feeds life. The clue. DS no longer climb. They begin to flatten, their sharp edges melting into mist. The wind loses its urgency. The air, once thick with waiting, feels light again. The sky brightens little by little as the storm moves on. But it does not vanish without a trace. The lightning that struck the ground may have split a tree or sparked a fire, or it may have struck silently into open land unseen, leaving behind only a scent and a scar. In every case, it reminds us that the storm is real, not just beauty, but power. And yet there is beauty even in that. The branching of a lightning bolt, called a Lichtenberg figure, follows fractal patterns, shapes that echo through nature in rivers and roots, blood vessels and galaxies. The storm speaks the same language that trees do, that mountains and neurons and coastlines speak. It is a pattern older than words, older than thought. After the rain, the world feels washed. The streets shine wet in the fading light. Leaves gleam with droplets, each one catching a piece of sky. The animals emerge again, birds testing the wind, insects ticking against wet grass, frogs calling from hidden pools. The earth exhales just as the cloud once did. The storm has passed, but its presence lingers. High above, remnants of the cloud drift slowly across the sky. The tower that once reached upward like a question mark is now broken into fragments, cotton shapes smudged across the blue. Sunlight pours between them, golden and soft, filtered through air that has been combed clean. The balance has been restored. The breath has been released. And still, somewhere beyond the horizon, another breath begins. The cycle of the storm-breathing cloud is not a single event. It is part of the larger pulse of weather, climate, and life. Warmth rises, moisture gathers, particles collide, charges build, and when the time is right, the sky speaks again, not with violence but with need, with the longing to complete a pattern, to share its tension, to return what was taken and reclaim what was given. This is the quiet truth behind the storm, that it is not simply a disruption but a process of restoration, that the charge it holds is not a flaw but a function, that the breath it takes, the electricity it gathers, the light it releases, all of it is part of something ancient and necessary. So when you hear thunder in the distance or see the sky darken above the hills, remember the secret charge that builds inside every cloud. Remember the droplets rising and falling, the quiet sorting of energy, the breath that grows fuller with every moment. Remember that the storm is not angry, it is alive, and that it breathes not just for itself, but for the sky, the earth, and everything in between. It charges up because it must, it releases because it can no longer hold, and when it does, it brings us light, sound, rain, and renewal. The storm breathes in. The storm breathes out. And the sky is made whole again. Far above the quiet meadows and rooftops, in a sky brushed with the weight of weather, a story begins not with sound but with shimmer. This story is not about rain alone, nor lightning alone, but the delicate space where the two meet, where charge becomes motion and water becomes light. It begins in the silence between clouds, where the air is layered with whispers too soft to hear. Electric rain does not fall like ordinary rain. It falls from a cloud that remembers heat, wind, and rising breath. These clouds begin small, as all clouds do, gathering from the warmth of fields, oceans, and rivers below. Moisture lifts upward, climbing invisible staircases of warm air. As it rises, it cools, condenses, and joins with others. Tiny droplets form around floating particles, dust, pollen, salt, each one a nucleus for a future raindrop. But this story is not just about droplets. It is about how those droplets move and collide and exchange the faintest threads of electricity. When a droplet brushes past an ice crystal, or when a hailstone jostles against a rising speck of liquid, a charge shifts. Not a violent shift, just a gentle tug, a moment of imbalance. Multiply this by millions, and soon the cloud has become something else entirely. Not just water and vapor, but a great engine of potential. Somewhere in the belly of this cloud, the air begins to churn. Warm updrafts push ever upward, carrying more vapor into colder air. And here ice begins to grow, not all at once, but layer by layer, forming pellets and crystals, branching into snowflakes or compacting into hailstones. Each of these carries charge, and each time they collide, a bit of that charge changes hands. This creates a strange layering, positive charges floating near the top of the cloud, and heavier, negative ones falling toward the bottom. It is not a perfect pattern, but it is consistent enough that over time, the imbalance deepens. The storm has now become electric. But rain has not yet begun to fall. The droplets inside the clue D are still rising, still growing, still merging. They tumble within the cloud's breath, jostling, bumping, freezing. They are charged now, not enough to strike, but enough to wait, enough to feel the pull of something greater forming between them. And on the ground below, something begins to answer. The surface of the earth senses the building tension overhead. Positive charges begin to gather along fence posts, treetops, mountaintops, rooftops, even on the upturned faces of animals and people. This response is subtle, slow, almost shy, but it's there always, a quiet reaching up as the earth waits for what the sky might release. The air between them becomes a bridge not yet crossed. The electric field is growing stronger, but it is invisible. You might feel it as a strange pressure on your skin. You might hear it as a change in the way the world sounds, quieter, deeper, as if something important were about to begin. Birds may go silent, dogs may grow restless, leaves may turn ever so slightly upward, as if trying to see what cannot be seen. Still, the rain holds. Inside the cloud, the droplets become heavier. Those that are too large to float begin to fall. But as they fall, they carry charge with them, negative charge mostly, drawn from the lower layers of the cloud. These charged raindrops do more than wet the ground. They help build the path for lightning. They fall through the charged space between sky and earth, gently ionizing the air as they go. Not enough to spark, but enough to soften the way. These first drops are like scouts, quiet messengers that tell the earth, the sky is readying itself. And then deep within the cloud, something begins to reach. It is not light, not yet. It is a stepped leader, a branching thread of negative charge that extends downward in fits and starts. Each step is a hesitation, a test. The leader does not rush. It senses the pull from the ground and moves toward it, carving an invisible trail through the thick air. At the same time, the earth responds with its own invisible fingers. Positive streamers rise from the highest points, trees, towers, stones. These upward-reaching pulses stretch toward the descending leader, and when they meet, the path is complete. The result is lightning. It happens in reverse from earth to sky, a brilliant return stroke that travels along the newly formed channel. It is fast, faster than any blink, and in its brightness it lights the space between. For that instant, the storm reveals its structure, the clouds tower, the falling rain, the trembling sky. And just after the light, the sound follows. Thunder rolls like a soft drumbeat behind the eyes, like the sky exhaling through its deepest lungs. It reminds the earth that what just happened was real. That energy has changed hands. That something has shifted in the balance of the atmosphere. And now the rain begins in earnest. No longer scouts, these are the full droplets, heavy with charge, full of memory. They fall not with violence, but with purpose. They cool the air, they wash the leaves. They bring the storm's story downward, drop by drop. Some carry negative charges from the cloud's depths. Others may carry positive, depending on the height and temperature from which they fell. But all of them are part of the storm's exhale. This is electric rain. It is not ordinary water. It is charged water, moving through an atmosphere that has been primed for release. Each drop is a soft reminder that even the quietest storms are full of unseen power. That lightning does not always roar. Sometimes it trickles, sometimes it floats, sometimes it waits inside the rain itself. And as the rain falls, the cloud above begins to lighten. Each droplet that leaves carries with it a piece of the storm's potential. Each bolt of lightning releases another breath of tension. Slowly, the cloud becomes less divided. The positive and negative charges mix, cancel, soften. The storm is releasing its energy in pieces, through light, through sound, through rain. Below, the earth welcomes the rain. It sinks into soil. It runs down bark. It pools in shallow places, gathering reflections. And with each drop that lands, the electric field between cloud and ground fades just a little more. The storm is still alive, but it is no longer growing. It is unwinding. Lightning still flickers now and then. Thunder still rolls, but the worst of the charge has been spent. What remains is cleansing. What remains is rhythm, the patter of rain, the hush of wind, the slow return of sound. Electric rain falls long after the lightning has passed. It continues to carry charge for some time, especially when the storm is still fading. Even in its final moments, the rain helps redistribute energy, touching the world with the storm's memory. Above, the cloud continues its drift, thinner now, paler. The heart of the storm has passed, but its story lingers in every puddle, in every glistening leaf, in every spark still echoing. Long the edges of the sky. And the earth, once tense with expectation, now rests. The charge has fallen, the rain has spoken, the sky has shared its breath. And all is still again. The storm has spoken, but it is not yet finished. Electric rain continues to fall, each drop carrying more than just water. Inside it, there is memory of the heights it rose from, of the charge it gathered, of the cloud that released it. These droplets are more than passengers on the wind. They are messengers of balance, of exchange, of release. And as they fall, they bring with them the soft unraveling of the storm's once coiled breath. Lightning still pulses from time to time, not always downward, not always seen. Some flickers stretch across the sky, lighting entire cloud banks from within. These are called sheet lightning, flashes that stay inside the cloud, bouncing from particle to particle, from layer to layer, illuminating the sky like a lantern behind a curtain. Others, more distant, may leap from one cloud to another, forming long, jagged threads in the heavens. These are intercloud flashes, bridges of charge-trading hands far above the world, each one a signal that the storm's conversation continues. And all the while, the rain falls. There is something about rain in the wake of lightning that feels softer than any other kind. It holds a hush in it, a weightless quality, as if the world is being rewritten in slow, wet strokes. The charged particles within these drops still interact with the atmosphere. They may affect the electrical field of the air for minutes after the lightning has faded. This means that even gentle showers after a storm can influence the way radio signals travel or how certain seeds wake in the soil. Electric rain does more than moisten, it reshapes. As each droplet lands, it alters the texture of the ground. It seeps into roots and rocks. It carries with it trace minerals, ions, bits of the sky itself. The water that once floated above us now becomes part of what grows below. And as it moves, it whispers to seeds, to microbes, to thirsty roots. The storm is over. The breath has returned. But within the cloud, the remnants of charge still swirl. Though most of the energy has been spent, there are pockets where imbalance remains, small zones of difference, of tension. These may release their energy slowly, through faint pulses or glows. Sometimes this creates a phenomenon known as St. Elmo's fire, an eerie bluish light that dances at the tips of pointed objects like ship masts, steeples, or even mountain peaks. It is not fire at all, but a soft corona of plasma, born when the electric field becomes just strong enough to ionize the air without causing a full discharge. St. Elmo's fire is rare, but when it appears, it seems to come from another world, one foot in weather, the other in myth. Sailors once believed it to be a sign of guidance or protection, a blessing in the heart of a storm. And in a way, they were right. It is the atmosphere's way of shedding excess charge safely, of glowing its secrets into the wind rather than burning them in a bolt. Meanwhile, down below, the surface is changing. The rain forms channels along the land. It creates new paths, however small, carving fresh shapes into earth and stone. It polishes leaves. It weighs down branches. It drips from rooftops and hands and hair. Everything feels more still under rain that follows lightning, as if the world is holding that final breath before it exhales fully. The animals feel it too. Earthworms rise from the soil. Birds emerge from shelter. Frogs sing from puddles. The rain brings scent and sound back to the world, new, clean, charged with something unseen. Even the trees, wet and glistening, seem to lean into it, opening their leaves, letting droplets roll down their trunks like memories returned. Electric rain also changes the chemistry of the air. Lightning splits nitrogen molecules in the atmosphere, allowing them to combine with oxygen and form nitrates. These then dissolve into rain and fall to the ground, feeding the soil with nutrients that help plants grow. This is one of nature's oldest cycles, lightning feeding the land, a spark giving rise to life. And so the rain is not just cleansing, it is fertilizing. It carries not only water but sustenance. It reminds us that lightning, while fierce, is not wasteful. Its energy becomes food, its chaos becomes order, its violence becomes growth. As the rain continues, the clouds begin to drift. Their edges fray like worn cloth, their cores thinned by the release of charge. The pressure within them drops, the air around them becomes more stable. The updrafts weaken, the downdrafts calm. The storm, once alive with breath and tension, begins to relax. Now and then a final flash may flicker across the sky, distant and tired. Thunder murmurs low and far away, but these are not signs of threat. They are the last words of a story, the final notes in a long, slow song. As the rain lightens, as the clouds begin to dissolve, the sky begins to change. Patches of light open above. Sunlight filters through in golden shafts. The landscape glows with contrast, wet earth, bright sky, cool air. You may see a rainbow form, drawn from the interplay of water and light, a final gift from a storm that has spent itself completely. And through it all, the memory of the charge remains. Not as fear, not as fire, but as motion, as nourishment, as connection. The rain that falls after lightning is part of the same story. The same breath that rose and stretched, that sparked and sang, now falls back to earth in slow, shimmering silence. This is how lightning learns to fall, not in one great flash, but in millions of drops, each one shaped by electricity, each one telling the sky's softest secret. And when the last drop lands, when the last cloud fades into the horizon, we are left not with noise but with quiet, not with fear but with awe. Electric rain has fallen, and the world for a little while glows from within. The last drops of electric rain fall softly now, as if reluctant to leave the sky. Each one drifts through the layers of air, through the memory of charge and the hush of thunder now gone. There is no flash left, no shudder of energy, only the delicate descent of water that once shared a home with lightning. These final droplets touch the earth like the closing notes of a lullaby, returning to the soil, the roots, the rivers that called them upward long before the storm was born. Above, the storm clouds have thinned to gentle grays. Their towering bodies, once swollen with heat and breath, now stretch and fade like worn fabric across a pale sky. What remains is a sky stitched with softness, a silence that settles deeper than words. The storm has not disappeared, it has simply dissolved into the places it touched. The air, still cool and charged with scent, carries a kind of openness. It feels wider now, having held so much tension, having heard the sky speak in sparks. Even the light feels changed, brighter, more golden, as it filters through air scrubbed clean by rain. Sunlight spills down like a slow river, catching droplets clinging to blades of grass, to rooftops, to outstretched leaves. These droplets shimmer like tiny mirrors, each reflecting a world reborn. Electric rain leaves no lasting scar, but it leaves behind feeling. The tingling hush, the softness of wet soil beneath bare feet, the way a single drop lingers on a fingertip before falling again. It leaves a stillness, yes, but also a kind of clarity. The storm charged the sky, but it also charged us. It reminded us of connection, of cause and echo, of how something unseen can shape everything we feel. Beneath the surface, the earth has begun its quiet work. The water seeps downward, joining roots that stir gently in the soil. The nitrates delivered by lightning begin to feed the life hidden below, microbes, seeds, filaments of fungi spreading through the darkness like threads of thought. There is no ceremony here, no song, but something is awakening all the same. The energy that once lit the sky is now preparing the ground. And above, birds return to the branches. Their feathers are slick but unbothered, their calls soft and wondering. They remember the storm not with fear, but with instinct. Rain is familiar to them. Lightning is part of the rhythm they have lived with for generations. They do not question its presence, they simply wait, then return, much like the forest, much like the rivers, much like the world itself. Even the wind has changed. Where once it howled around the edges of the cloud, rising and twisting with invisible force, it now drifts slowly, weaving between leaves, lifting the smallest seeds and sending them outward. In this soft aftermath, the storm's final purpose is revealed, not just to release tension, not just to carry charge, but to begin something new. This is the quiet promise of electric rain, that what rises must fall, but not in vain. That lightning, for all its brightness, is only the beginning. That water, touched by fire, carries something more than moisture, it carries memory. Not of destruction, but of transformation. Not of endings, but of openings. For some, the storm will become a distant sound, thunder rolling over hills, fading into sleep. For others, it may be a scent that lingers in the air or the wet glisten on a windowsill. But even when forgotten, the rain's work continues. Flowers will bloom brighter, fed by the sky's offering. Trees will drink deeper. And in some small pool, hidden beneath fallen leaves, the first ripples of a frog's call will rise again. Somewhere in the distance, the last rumble of thunder fades like the closing door of a great hall. The ceremony is over, but the blessing remains. The cloud has emptied itself, and in doing so has made space for something else, for calm, for growth, for light. If you stand still now, if you close your eyes, and lift your face to the sky, you might still feel it, the faint charge left in the air, the final breath of the cloud brushing past your skin. It is not a warning, it is a whisper, a reminder of how the sky opens, not in anger, but in longing. Because lightning does not fall by accident. It is chosen by the sky, shaped by temperature, by wind, by imbalance seeking peace. It is guided by the electric field that stretches invisibly between earth and sky, a pathway carved by droplets, by rising air, by the soft chemistry of weather. And once that lightning falls, it teaches the cloud how to let go. Electric rain is not the storm's beginning or its middle, it is its final gift, the touch that returns balance to a world pulled too tightly, the hush after the crescendo, the lightest part of something once so heavy. And now, as the clouds drift away and the rain becomes mist, the cycle is ready to begin again. The earth, charged and washed, breathes in once more. Somewhere far away, new warmth rises from forest or sea. A wisp of vapor begins to climb, and above it, the sky waits with open hands. The next storm is not a threat. It is a breath waiting to be drawn, a charge waiting to gather, a fall waiting to become light again. And in that fall, a promise that the sky remembers how to let go, that every drop knows where to land, that every storm, however fierce, will one day end with rain. Before a single cloud forms, before a storm ever breathes, something much smaller begins to stir, tiny grains of dust, invisible to most eyes, dancing through the air in silence. These grains are older than the rain, older than the wind, older than the trees that lean into both. Some drift upward from dry desert floors. Others lift from distant oceans, carried by the breath of waves. Bits of pollen, ash, salt, soil, all rising slowly into the waiting sky. They are too light to fall quickly, too small to be seen as they begin their journey. And yet without them, clouds would not form. Without them, the sky would be empty of shape. These particles, humble and unseen, are the seeds around which water gathers. They are the beginning of the storm's softest story. As the sun warms the earth, moisture rises from rivers, lakes, fields, and skin. This water vapor, weightless and clear, floats upward into the cooler reaches of the sky. But vapor alone cannot become a cloud. It needs something to hold on to, something to cling to. And so it finds these tiny dust particles, and around them begins to build. Each grain of dust becomes a nucleus, a center around which droplets can form. Water condenses around it, turning from vapor into liquid. The sky, full of invisible moisture, suddenly has something to shape itself upon. These first droplets are so small they cannot fall, held aloft by the gentlest winds, by the upward sigh of warm air. They are soft beginnings, floating silently within the air. But the sky is not still. More moisture rises, more dust and salt and pollen climb higher, and as they meet, more droplets form. Some bump into others, joining, growing, becoming heavier. A single raindrop might begin as hundreds of smaller ones, each one shaped by a speck of matter carried on the wind from places far away. In this way, the clouds begin to form. They do not appear suddenly. They gather slowly, like thoughts collecting at the edge of sleep. Wisps stretch and drift, pulling together into soft blankets of white and gray. These clouds are not yet storms. They are the sky's quiet hands gathering pieces of the world into itself. And at the heart of it all, dust and droplets, together in motion. Inside these young clouds, the droplets continue their gentle dance. They spin and collide, pushed by air currents that move in invisible spirals. Some freeze into ice, their crystals delicate and bright. Others remain liquid, chilled but not solid, suspended in a delicate balance. The particles that helped form them are still there, at the center of each droplet, hidden from sight. Without these tiny cores, water would have no reason to condense. The atmosphere would hold its moisture forever, an invisible sea above our heads. It is the dust that allows the clouds to breathe. Some of this dust is born from the earth, ground rock, forest ash, windswept soil, but much of it travels farther. Sahara sand has been found in South American jungles. Sea salt floats hundreds of miles inland. Even pollen can rise higher than mountains, drifting into clouds that stretch far across continents. The sky does not recognize borders. It gathers what it finds, folding the world into itself. And in doing so, it carries memory of deserts and oceans, of flowering fields, of volcanic ash. Each droplet that forms is a tiny archive, a soft container of past landscapes. The rain we feel may have begun its life on the other side of the world. And still, the droplets dance. The longer they swirl, the more collisions occur. Small droplets merge into larger ones, some break apart. Others freeze, collecting layers as they rise and fall within the cloud. These movements are not chaotic. They are choreographed by wind and temperature, by the shape of the cloud, by the presence of dust still moving within it. Eventually, the droplets grow too heavy. Their dance becomes descent. They begin to fall not quickly, not all at once, but slowly, like sleep settling over a tired world. Some evaporate before reaching the ground. Others make the full journey, landing softly on leaves, roofs, and open hands. And when they do, they carry with them the trace of the dust that gave them form. Each raindrop that touches the earth is the ending of a long story. A story that began not with thunder or wind, but with a single grain of something small, a speck of salt, a flake of ash, a fragment of pollen lifted into the sky. And from that speck, a cloud was born. Even now, as you look upward and see the gentle gray above, you are seeing not just moisture, but memory. The clouds carry pieces of the earth they rose from. They are shaped by what we cannot see. And in their forming, they remind us that even the smallest things can become the foundation of something vast. The dance of dust and droplets continues above us, whether we look up or not. It is a dance of balance, of patience, of quiet grace. It is the beginning of every storm, and the gentle breath before the sky begins to speak. Let's drift further now into the heart of the cloud, where the dance of dust and droplets becomes more than just movement, it becomes transformation. Here the invisible becomes visible. Water, drawn upward in vapor, has now taken form. It wraps around particles so small they might never settle to the earth on their own. And yet, within this soft swirl of motion, the sky is building weight, shaping the breath of the world into something we can feel on our skin. Inside this cloud, droplets begin to gather into families. They are not alike. Some are icy, sharp-edged, and glittering. Others are soft and round, still liquid, still warm from the climb. The collisions continue, more frequent now, as winds lift and tumble them, drawing up currents that spiral like unseen rivers. These are called updrafts, and they hold the cloud together, lifting moisture higher, allowing it to cool and condense again and again. Some droplets grow large enough to begin falling. They descend slowly at first, pulled gently by gravity, but many do not reach the earth. They pass through warmer layers of air and vanish back into vapor. Others fall into colder regions, freeze and rise again, carried by another updraft, only to collect more layers of ice. These become hailstones, born from repetition, shaped by the cycle of lifting and falling, gathering strength through return. Still, it is the dust that guides this process. Without dust, without particles, there would be no raindrops, no hail, no clouds at all. The atmosphere would be filled with invisible vapor, incapable of coalescing. It is the dust, the pollen, the ash, the salt, that gives the water its anchor, that offers it a place to rest and become something more. And this dust does not come from nowhere. Much of it is carried by the wind across continents. Saharan sand, dry and ancient, rises on warm air and crosses oceans. It seeds clouds in places that have never seen the desert. Volcanic ash, thrown high into the sky, can linger for years, circling the globe, waiting to be wrapped in moisture and lowered once again by rain. Even soot from distant fires can ride air currents for thousands of miles, a dark memory drifting above the world. As it moves, this dust becomes part of something larger. Each particle is a potential beginning, and the droplets know this. They gather around the dust, fold into its crevices, cool against its edges. It is not a conscious knowing, of course, but it is precise. The laws of physics are quiet but exact. The bonds that form between vapor and dust are delicate, but they hold. In that holding, the cloud continues to grow. The cloud changes color as it grows, bright white at first, light passing easily through small droplets. But as the droplets grow larger and more numerous, the cloud darkens. Light struggles to pass through. Shadows gather inside it. This darkening is not ominous, only a sign that the cloud has thickened, that its droplets are larger, that the dance inside it has become more intense. Still, the world below remains unaware of the details. We see only the shifting sky, the gray that rolls in over fields and cities. We do not see the millions of collisions, the dust spun from deserts, the salt from faraway waves. We do not see the pollen lifted from last season's flowers or the tiny spores launched by mushrooms in deep forest soil. But they are there in every drop of water waiting to fall. Sometimes two clouds meet, their edges brush like fingertips, and in that moment their contents mix, dust from different places, droplets of different temperatures. These collisions create more than just rain, they create electricity. Ice colliding with water, rising and falling in layered turbulence, begins to build charge. The cloud now holds not just water, not just weight, but potential. That potential grows. The differences in temperature, in mass, in charge become a quiet storm within the cloud. Still the droplets fall and rise. Still the dust spins. Every movement deepens the pattern, adds to the structure. The cloud is no longer a soft gathering, it is a system, a machine of wind and water shaped by ancient dust and new breath. Below, the air grows still. The light changes. Birds disappear into trees. Even the insects vanish. All of nature seems to feel the cloud's growing weight. Something is about to fall, not just as rain, but as memory, as echo, as balance returning. But the cloud is not only heavy with water. It is heavy with time. The dust it holds may be from a volcano that erupted before you were born. The salt may have been carried from a tide that never reached your shore. The pollen may have come from a forest you will never walk through. Every droplet is a traveler. Every drop that forms is part of a story much older than the moment of its fall. This is the part of the dance we rarely see. We look at the cloud and think it is new, sudden, arriving only in the hours we notice it. But the truth is that its parts have been in motion for days, weeks, even years. Some of the dust has circled the globe. Some of the moisture has risen and fallen a dozen times. The cloud is not sudden. It is slow, patient, shaped by memory. And now, with its belly full, its layers stretched and swirling, it prepares to release. Not all at once, not with thunder, at least not yet, but with a shift in temperature, a soft increase in pressure, a breath held just a little too long. Raindrops form, they gather speed. They fall in silence at first, wide apart, scattered. They darken soil and pavement. They tickle leaves. They touch skin with a kind of knowing. The dance is becoming descent. The dust, long lifted into sky, is returning home, carried by the very droplets it helped form. This is how the sky gives back what it borrowed, not in storms alone, but in simple rain, in quiet falling, in the tender balance between rise and return. And as the rain falls softly, the dust within each droplet makes its final journey. It settles quietly onto fields and forests, onto rooftops and riversides, returning to the earth it once left. This dust has traveled far, perhaps across oceans or deserts, through storms and calm skies, carrying with it the stories of distant places. When it reaches the ground, it becomes part of the soil again, nourishing roots and feeding microorganisms that live unseen beneath the surface. The cycle continues, connecting sky to earth, past to present. The droplets themselves leave their mark too. They wash the air of dust and pollen, clearing the sky and softening the light. They polish leaves and petals, making gardens glisten. They seep into cracks in rocks, slowly shaping the landscape over time. And as they move, these raindrops carry a whisper of the clouds they fell from, a whisper of the ancient dance of dust and water, of motion and memory. This dance is delicate, patient, endless. It begins with the smallest grains and ends in the gentle touch of rain upon the earth. It is a story of balance, a balance between forces seen and unseen, between particles too small to grasp and storms vast enough to reshape the sky. Even now, as you breathe in the scent of wet earth and listen to the soft patter of rain, you are part of this story. The dust beneath your feet, the droplets falling around you, the clouds above, all are connected by this invisible thread. They remind us that every storm begins not with thunder or lightning, but with the tiniest seeds of dust carried on the wind. The dance continues above, even after the last drop falls. The clouds thin and drift, their edges fading into mist, yet the dust remains, a silent partner in the cycle of life. It waits to be lifted once more, to begin the dance again, rising with the next warm breath of the earth, ready to gather moisture and grow into clouds that will speak with thunder and rain. In this way, the sky remembers. It holds the memory of deserts and seas, of fires and forests, of every place the dust has been. It carries these stories in droplets that fall softly, like lullabies sung by the wind. And when the next storm gathers, when the clouds darken and the air thickens with promise, it is because this dance of dust and droplets has begun anew. The tiny grains rise, the moisture gathers, the collisions multiply. And somewhere deep within the cloud, the secret charge is building once more, ready to light the sky and water the earth, continuing the ancient rhythm of life. The dance is endless. It is slow and sure, patient and precise. It is the bria. Th of the sky, the heartbeat of the storm, the quiet song of rain. And it all begins with dust. Water remembers, not in words or images, but in motion and shape, in temperature and taste, in the way it clings to skin and flows through rivers. The water that falls in a thunderstorm carries the history of the clouds it came from, the paths it has traveled, and the moments it has held. Each drop is a tiny archive, a whispered story written in the language of moisture and charge. Imagine a single droplet rising from the surface of a lake on a warm summer morning. It begins its journey as invisible vapor, light and free, climbing slowly through the air. As it rises, it cools, condenses around a tiny particle of dust or salt, becoming liquid again. This small transformation is the first breath in a long journey, one that will carry the droplet through clouds, storms, and finally back to Earth. Inside a thunderstorm cloud, the droplet finds itself in a world of motion and change. It collides with other droplets and ice crystals, tumbles on currents of air rising and falling, freezes and melts in a cycle of transformation. Each collision alters the droplet's shape and charge, adding layers to its memory. The droplet is no longer simply water. It is charged, shaped by electricity and motion. Scientists who study storms have found that water molecules can carry memories in their structures, clusters of molecules that arrange themselves in patterns influenced by temperature and pressure. These patterns affect how water behaves, how it freezes, how it interacts with light. Some believe that the very history of the droplet influences its future, that water remembers where it has been. As the droplet moves inside the cloud, it participates in the cloud's electric dance. It carries charge, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, passing it along with each collision. The charge separation within the cloud grows stronger, shaping the potential for lightning. The water droplet is part of this growing tension, a tiny piece of a larger story written in light and shadow. The droplet may freeze and fall as hail, or remain liquid and descend slowly as rain. Either way, it carries with it the memory of the storm's breath, the warmth of the ground below, the chill of the upper atmosphere, the electric pulses that ripple through the cloud's heart. When the droplet finally falls to earth, it brings more than moisture. It brings history, connection, and change. It nourishes roots and streams, shapes the land, and refreshes the air. The water's memory becomes part of the world's ongoing story, a cycle of rise and fall, charge and release. And though we cannot see these memories, they shape our world in ways both gentle and profound. They remind us that water is alive with stories, stories of storms and sun, of earth and sky, of the endless dance between them. In the quiet moments after a thunderstorm, when the air is still thick with moisture and the earth breathes deeply, we are touching the memory of water. We feel it in the coolness on our skin, in the smell of wet leaves, in the soft rhythm of dripping trees. Water remembers, and in remembering, it connects us all. Let's drift deeper into the hidden world of water's memory inside a thunderstorm cloud. Here, amidst the swirling currents of air and moisture, each droplet holds a story shaped by its journey. The cloud itself is a great library, full of droplets that carry echoes of heat and cold, of collisions and transformations, of the electric charge that courses invisibly through the sky. Inside the cloud, droplets and ice crystals are in constant motion, moving in updrafts and downdrafts, tumbling and colliding like dancers in a slow, swirling ballet. When a droplet brushes against an ice crystal, or when two droplets merge, tiny exchanges of electrical charge occur. This constant shifting helps separate positive and negative charges within the cloud, creating the conditions for lightning to ignite. But the droplets do more than carry charge. They carry structural memory, clusters of water molecules that arrange themselves differently depending on the temperature, pressure, and history of the droplet. Some scientists believe that these molecular arrangements can influence how water behaves when it freezes, melts, or evaporates. The water inside a storm is not uniform. It is a mosaic of memories shaped by the atmosphere. The droplets may freeze into tiny ice crystals or hailstones, each layer capturing a moment of change, freezing in cold pockets, melting in warmer currents, accumulating charge as they rise and fall. These layers are like rings in a tree, marking time and conditions, preserving the story of the storm's breath. As the storm intensifies, the droplets grow heavier, pulled downward by gravity. They may fall as rain, or be carried upward again by strong updrafts, rising and falling multiple times before reaching the ground. Each trip reshapes the droplet as to its history and carries the memory of the air and the cloud it passed through. When lightning flashes, it is the release of the energy built up through these countless collisions and charges. The droplets participate in this dance, carrying the electric tension that is both created and released by their motion. They are the unseen connectors between sky and earth, between charge and light. As the droplets descend through the charged atmosphere, they influence the electric field between cloud and ground. Their charge can help create a path for lightning to follow, making the invisible visible in a brilliant flash. The water that falls is both witness and participant in the storm's story. Finally, when the droplets reach the earth, their memory is carried into the soil, the rivers, and the living things they nourish. The history they hold becomes part of the life cycle, feeding plants, replenishing streams, shaping the land. Water's memory is a thread woven into the fabric of the world. Even after the storm has passed, the memory lingers, in the moisture that clings to leaves, in the dampness of the soil, in the coolness of the air. It reminds us that water is more than a substance. It is a storyteller, a keeper of histories, a link between the vast sky and the living earth. In the quiet after the storm, when the clouds have parted and the sun returns, we can feel this memory in the softness of the light and the freshness of the air. It is a subtle presence, like a secret whispered by the world itself. Water remembers, and in that remembering, it connects us all to the endless rhythm of the sky. As the storm begins to release its breath, the water droplets carry their stories down to the earth below. Each drop falls with a history shaped by its journey through the shifting currents of the storm, a memory encoded in its very molecules. The fall is gentle yet purposeful, a descent that reconnects sky and ground in a cycle as old as the clouds themselves. These droplets, though small, are mighty bearers of change. When they meet the earth, they seep into soil and roots, nourishing the plants that feed entire ecosystems. The water remembers its travels through the cold heights of the cloud, the electric tension of the storm's heart, and it delivers that energy quietly, fostering growth and life. It carries the gift of transformation, moving from vapor to liquid, from sky to soil, from storm to calm. Even the air around us feels the echo of this memory. After a thunderstorm, the atmosphere is thick with moisture and charged particles, a lingering trace of the storm's passage. This charged air can affect the way light bends, making rainbows glow brighter and the colors of the world more vivid. The smell of wet earth petrichor rises, a scent born from oils released by plants and soil, mingling with the storm's own breath. It is nature's way of marking the moment, a sensory reminder of the water's journey. Beneath the surface, rivers swell with new water, and puddles form mirrors that reflect the clearing sky. These reflections hold more than just the image of clouds and sun. They carry the storm's memory, a silent testament to the path water has taken. In each pool, droplets dance gently, their movement a continuation of the cycle that began in the clouds. Animals, too, respond to this renewal. Birds shake their feathers, spreading droplets wide. Frogs croak from hidden pools, their voices a chorus celebrating the return of water. Even the smallest insects emerge, their wings glistening with moisture. Life stirs, awakened by the rain's touch, as if the memory carried in the water calls them back into motion. Water's memory is not confined to moments after the storm. It extends into the very fabric of the earth. As it infiltrates the soil, it interacts with minerals, carrying dissolved nutrients that nourish roots and microorganisms. It participates in the cycles of growth and decay, feeding life that sustains forests, fields, and gardens. In this way, the storm's energy transforms into the quiet power of renewal. Yet the memory held by water is fragile and fleeting. It exists in the arrangement of molecules, in the temperature of a droplet, in the charge it carries. These patterns shift as water moves, evaporates, or freezes, but the story lingers in the cycle itself, the endless rising and falling, the continuous exchange between sky and earth. In human hearts, this memory resonates deeply. We feel the storm's passage not only in sight and sound, but in the way it stirs something within us. The fresh scent after rain, the gentle rhythm of droplets on a window, the distant roll of thunder, all remind us of connection, of cycles larger than ourselves. Water remembers storms, and in remembering, it teaches us to listen, to the sky's breath, to the earth's pulse, to the quiet, constant dance of life sustained by invisible threads of moisture and charge. And as we breathe in this memory, we become T of the story, a story written in water, light, and the endless rhythm of the thunderstorm. There is a quiet that comes before lightning, a silence so deep it feels as if the world is holding its breath. Before the sky breaks open with fire, before thunder shatters the air, there is a pause, a space filled not with sound but with anticipation. This silence is heavy, soft, and thick with the weight of something waiting to be released. Look up just as a storm gathers and notice this hush. The air grows still, the birds fall silent, and the wind seems to fade. Even the colors change, shifting to softer grays and blues as if the world itself is dimming the lights. This moment is not empty, it is full of meaning. It is the calm before the sky speaks. Inside the cloud, this silence is alive. The droplets and ice crystals, charged and colliding, slow their dance. The currents of air steady, holding fast the energy that has built through hours, even days. Positive and negative charges have gathered in separate layers, stretched across the cloud like invisible threads. The tension is immense but unspoken. Some scientists call this the breakdown field, a moment when the electric field between cloud and ground grows strong, but has not yet crossed the threshold to spark. It is a delicate balance, a tightrope walk between holding and releasing. The air itself becomes a conductor, humming softly with invisible energy. Below, the earth responds to this tension. Positive charges rise from the ground, reaching upward through trees, buildings, even people. The connection between sky and earth is nearly complete. The atmosphere is charged with possibility, the space between waiting to be filled. This silence is not absence, it is presence. It is the storm's breath held deep in its chest, waiting for the moment to exhale. The world around it feels the weight of this quiet, as if nature itself pauses to listen. The stillness carries a kind of electricity you cannot see but can feel on your skin, the subtle tingling that rises on the back of your neck, the hairs on your arms standing tall. It is the touch of charged air, a gentle reminder of the unseen forces gathering above. And then in that silence, the sky begins to speak. But not with thunder or lightning. First comes the faintest flicker, the step leader. It is an invisible thread of negative charge, descending in broken, uncertain steps from the cloud toward the earth. It moves slowly at first, testing the air, searching for a path. The leader is hesitant, exploring the darkness, not yet ablaze but a whisper. The earth replies with its own signals, positive streamers reaching upward, drawn by the leader's approach. These are invisible fingers, delicate and fleeting, stretching from the tallest trees, the sharpest spires, the highest hills. They reach not with urgency but with patience. This exchange, this quiet conversation, happens far too fast for human eyes to see. It is the secret dialogue before the storm breaks. It is the language of lightning's birth. And all around, the air remains silent. This silence is sacred, a pause between worlds. It holds the weight of the storm's energy, the memory of countless collisions inside the cloud, the promise of the lightning yet to come. In this moment, time seems to stretch. Seconds become long as the storm waits, breath held, for the spark that will bridge sky and earth. The silence before the spark is full of mystery. It is a stillness that is alive. It is the space where potential gathers, where the invisible prepares to become visible. It is the calm within the storm's heart. And when the spark finally leaps, it is from this silence that it arises. The stillness is the storm's first word. The silence before the spark is the world holding its breath. Let's drift deeper into the silence before the spark, the hidden world where the storm holds its breath. Inside the towering cloud, charged particles gather quietly. Water droplets and ice crystals swirl in slow, deliberate dances, bumping and sliding past each other in a choreography shaped by temperature and wind. With every collision, they exchange tiny amounts of electrical charge. This silent exchange builds the invisible tension between positive and negative layers within the cloud. The cloud grows heavy with this unseen energy. Positive charges collect near its top, while negative charges sink toward its base. The space between these layers becomes a thin thread of power, stretched taut like a violin string waiting for a gentle touch. The air itself feels alive, filled with potential and expectation. Outside the cloud, the earth listens. Positive charges rise from soil, trees, and buildings, drawn upward by the negative charge lingering below the cloud. This quiet reaching connects ground and sky in a delicate dance. The electric field between them strengthens, humming softly but silently, invisible to the eye but powerful enough to influence the air.
Lord.
This moment is the balance point, the edge of change. The atmosphere is charged, ready, but still holding back. It is a breath paused, a world waiting to exhale. The silence is thick and full of tension, a quiet that presses on the skin and fills the chest with slow rhythm. As the stepped leader descends from the cloud in broken, jagged steps, it searches for a path through the air, tracing invisible lines of ionized gas. These tiny bursts of charge flicker briefly, reaching downward, hesitant and uncertain. The leader is not a flash of lightning, but the beginning of one, a slow probing, a tentative exploration of space. In response, the Earth sends its own signals. Positive streamers rise, slender and reaching from the tallest points on the surface, trees, spires, antennas. These streamers do not rush, they stretch patiently, waiting for connection. When leader and streamer meet, the path is complete. The air is ready to conduct the brilliant flash that will follow. Yet before that final spark, the silence deepens. The storm's breath is held even tighter. This quiet moment is not empty but full of motion and energy, of tension and release held just out of reach. The atmosphere itself vibrates with potential. Scientists have used high-speed cameras and sensors to capture this fleeting pause. They see the step leaders and streamers dance in dark space, too fast and faint for human eyes but vital for the storm's voice. This silence is a stage set for light, a hush before the skies exhale. The air around you holds this charge. If you are very still, very quiet, you might feel the gentle tingling, the subtle pull, the whisper of electricity brushing your skin. The hair on your arms may rise, your breath may catch. The world seems to slow, waiting with you. This silence is ancient. It has been the calm before every lightning bolt since storms first learned to speak. It is a rhythm woven into the fabric of nature, a rhythm of tension and release, of breath held and then let go. And when the spark finally leaps from cloud to earth, it does so from this silence. The lightning is not an abrupt scream, but the release of a breath held long and deep. The silence before the spark is the story's beginning, the moment of quiet before the storm's voice is heard. It is the breath the sky takes before it sings. In this silence we find connection, to the storm, to the earth, to the sky. We find the space where light is born and thunder waits to follow. The silence before the spark is the breath of the world itself. And then from this silence the spark is born. The stepped leader, that invisible thread of electricity, finally finds its path through the charged air. It moves with sudden certainty, carving a channel between cloud and earth. The positive streamer, rising patiently from the tallest point below, reaches up to meet it. When they connect, the air becomes a conductor, a bridge for the storm's breath to leap across the sky. Lightning bursts forth, a brilliant flash that lights the darkened world in an instant. It travels upward, faster than the eye can follow, hotter than the surface of the sun. The return stroke floods the channel with energy, painting the sky with jagged lines of pure light. This is the moment the storm breaks its silence, speaking in fire and sound. But even as the lightning flashes, the world around it remains held in awe. Thunder follows, a deep rumble that rolls across hills and valleys, a slow voice that echoes the sky's electric song. Thunder is not the lightning's voice but the sound of air expanding violently, heated by the lightning's passage. It is the breath exhaled after the long silence, the echo of the spark. The lightning strikes again and again in bursts, each one a release of built-up tension. The storm's breath comes out in flashes and roars, each spark a note in a symphony written by nature. But between each strike, the silence returns, a quiet full of meaning, a pause where the storm gathers strength once more. During this time, the storm breathes in and out, a living thing pulsing with energy. Droplets and ice continue their dance inside the cloud, collisions still exchanging charge, currents still flowing. The cycle of charge separation and release repeats, building and breaking, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. The world beneath the storm feels this rhythm. The wind shifts and sways, the rain begins to fall in steady drops, washing the earth and filling rivers. Animals find shelter or pause their song, waiting for the storm's mood to soften. The air carries the scent of wet earth and ozone, a reminder of the power that just passed. Lightning is both violent and gentle, destruction and creation entwined. It can strike a tree, splitting it with a crack, or it can light the nitrogen in the air, creating nutrients that nourish forests and fields. It is a spark that shapes the world as much as it lights the sky. And when the storm finally winds down, the cloud thin and scatter, the sky brightens and the air grows calm once more. The silence returns, not as absence but as completion. The world exhales, returning to its quiet breath. The silence before the spark was a promise, a breath held in anticipation. The lightning was the release, the exhale that restores balance. And now, the silence after the storm is a lullaby, a gentle closing of the sky's eye. This cycle of silence and spark repeats endlessly, a rhythm woven into the fabric of weather and life. It reminds us that even in the wildest storms, there is calm beneath the chaos, a breath behind the light. The silence before the spark is not emptiness. It is the seed of every lightning bolt, the waiting space that holds the sky's power. And when that silence breaks, it fills the world with light. High above, where the air grows thin and the sky stretches wide, clouds begin a quiet counting, a gentle arithmetic woven from droplets, ice crystals, and electric charge. These clouds are not like the soft, lazy shapes that drift on summer days. They are the mathematicians of the storm, keeping track of every spark, every collision, every breath of lightning waiting to fall. The counting begins long before the first flash lights the night. It starts with the rise of warm air, carrying moisture and dust upward like an invisible staircase. As vapor cools, it condenses around tiny particles, seeds of rain and ice that gather silently in the heights. Each droplet and crystal is part of the cloud's slow tally, a number in a vast and intricate equation. Within the cloud, droplets and ice swirl in endless motion, tumbling and colliding. Each collision is a transfer, a tiny shift of electrical charge that adds to the growing difference between the cloud's layers. Positive charges move upward, lighter and freer, while heavier negative charges sink toward the cloud's base. This separation is the cloud's counting, the slow accumulation of potential that shapes the storm's heart. Scientists have measured these charges with instruments flying through storms, finding millions of volts stored in the invisible ledger of the cloud. The cloud's tally is not just energy, but balance, an ongoing calculation of forces seen and unseen. It is a dynamic record of every breath the storm has taken. As the cloud grows, it holds this count carefully. Updrafts spiral, carrying droplets higher, while downdrafts push others downward. The numbers shift as particles rise and fall, freeze and melt, collide and part. The cloud's memory stretches across time and space, its total always changing, always growing. From the ground, the sky darkens in response to this counting. The air grows heavy with expectation. Positive charges rise from Earth to meet the cloud's negative base, completing the circuit. The electric field intensifies, a silent tally between sky and land. The cloud counts not just energy but moments, the waiting between flashes, the pause before the spark. It tracks the steps leaders as they descend in jagged lines, the positive streamers reaching upward. Each is part of the calculation, each a number in the story the cloud tells. In this way, the cloud is both a place and a process, a keeper of secrets and a teller of truths. It holds the sky's electricity in careful balance, knowing when to release and when to hold. Its counting is the language of storms, written in charge and motion. Even as lightning leaps and thunder rolls, the cloud's tally continues. It resets, begins anew, ready to gather, to build, to count again. This endless counting is the storm's rhythm, a pulse of nature's own making. And though we cannot see this counting, we can feel it in the flicker of lightning, in the roll of thunder, in the soft patter of rain. We are part of the storm's sum, connected to its invisible arithmetic. Clouds that count the lightning remind us that storms are not chaos but calculation, that every spark is a number, every flash a sum, and every storm a story told in electric pulses. The sky counts, and in its counting, the storm speaks. Let's drift deeper now into the cloud's quiet arithmetic, where droplets and ice crystals play their part in a delicate balance of charge and motion. Inside this vast, invisible ledger, every collision is a number added to the storm's growing total. Water droplets fall and rise, sometimes freezing into tiny ice particles or melting back into liquid. Each change shifts the cloud's electric score. Positive charges collect near the top, negative ones gather at the bottom, drawn by the cloud's constant dance of wind and temperature. Updrafts spiral like hidden currents, lifting moisture higher into colder layers where ice can form. Downdrafts push heavier particles down, moving the charges in opposite directions. These movements aren't random but part of the cloud's ongoing calculation. Each particle, from the smallest droplet to the largest hailstone, acts like a tiny counter in the storm's electric equation. As droplets and ice swirl, they bump and pass charge between one another, sorting themselves into layers. This separation creates an electric field, a force stretching invisibly between cloud and ground. The strength of this field is part of the cloud's tally, a measure of how close it is to releasing its energy in lightning. Scientists measure this field in volts and amperes, but to the cloud, it is simply the balance of its own breath. Below, the Earth responds in kind. Positive charges rise from the ground to meet the cloud's negative base. Trees, buildings, even people become part of this great circuit, their surfaces gathering charge, reaching up in silent anticipation. The air between them becomes more conductive, more eager to allow the spark that will bridge sky and earth. Within the cloud, intracloud lightning may flash, soft glows that leap between layers, releasing small amounts of energy while the overall charge continues to build. These flashes are part of the cloud's counting, a way of balancing its numbers without yet unleashing the full storm. The cloud's tally is also a story of time. It keeps track of moments, seconds between flashes, minutes of buildup, hours of gathering moisture. Each pause, each breath held, adds to the tension that will someday be released in a brilliant spark. The cloud is patient, knowing that its count must reach a threshold before the storm can speak aloud. This counting is not just physics, it is poetry written in charge and motion. It tells of collisions born from dust and vapor, of the delicate interplay between rising warmth and falling cold. It is the language of nature's balance, spoken in silent currents and electric whispers. Even when lightning strikes the ground, releasing massive energy, the cloud's count resets and begins again. It is a cycle without end, a storm's heartbeat steady and sure. The numbers shift, the balance tilts, and the cloud prepares once more to light the sky. For us watching below, this counting is invisible, but its effects are all around. The flash that splits the sky, the thunder that follows, the soft rain that soothes the earth, these are the results of the cloud's secret arithmetic. They remind us that storms are not chaos but careful calculation. And so, clouds that count the lightning are not just collections of water and air. They are ancient calculators of energy, holding and releasing the electric stories that shape our skies. They are the quiet keepers of the storm's rhythm. They are the sky's own mathematicians, telling tales in every flash and every drop. And in their counting, the world listens. As the cloud's count grows, the tension in the sky becomes almost tangible, a thread pulled tight, humming with the weight of energy yet to be released. The droplets and ice crystals continue their silent arithmetic, each collision a number added, each charge separated a step closer to the storm's climax. Inside the cloud, the layers of positive and negative charge stretch farther apart, like a stretched string ready to snap. This growing tension is not hidden from the world below. The electric field between cloud and earth intensifies, drawing positive charges upward from trees, buildings, and even the soil itself. The air becomes more conductive, preparing for the moment when the invisible becomes visible. It is a silent conversation, a prelude to the sky's brilliant performance. Then in a fraction of a second, the balance tips. a stepped leader, an invisible, jagged finger of negative charge, begins its descent from the cloud toward the earth. It moves in sudden bursts, pausing and branching, searching for a path through the charged air. From the ground, positive streamers rise to meet it, eager and reaching. When leader and streamer connect, the path is complete. The cloud releases its energy in a brilliant flash. Lightning leaps through the channel, faster than the eye can follow, hotter than the surface of the sun. The return stroke floods the path with light, painting the sky with jagged, flickering ribbons. This is the moment when the cloud's counting becomes visible, a story told in fire and light. But the lightning is only one part of the storm's tale. The thunder that follows is the sound of air heated so quickly that it expands violently, sending shockwaves rolling across the landscape. It is the echo of the cloud's release, the voice that accompanies the lightning's light. After each strike, the cloud's count resets. The tension lessens, the charges redistribute, and the storm breathes anew. Yet the counting never stops. Updrafts and downdrafts continue, droplets and ice continue to collide, charges separate and gather once more. The storm is a rhythm, a pulse that beats through the sky. Below, the rain falls gently or fiercely, washing the earth, nourishing life, and softening the world after the storm's fury. The droplets carry the memory of the cloud's breath, a liquid record of the storm. This journey, they remind us that every flash of lightning is part of a larger story, one of balance, motion, and endless counting. The clouds that count the lightning hold the storm's secrets close. They are both archivists and storytellers, balancing charge and energy with quiet precision. Their arithmetic is written not in numbers alone, but in the patterns of light that flash across the sky, the rumble of thunder that rolls through the air, and the soft fall of rain that follows. In this counting, we find the pulse of the storm, the interplay of forces that shape weather, climate, and life itself. It is a dance of energy and matter, of movement and stillness, of breath held and breath released. Clouds that count the lightning remind us that even the wildest storms are part of a careful balance, that nature's fury is tempered by rhythm and calculation, that in the sky's silent arithmetic there is beauty, order, and meaning. And as the storm passes, leaving behind soft skies and wet earth, the clouds begin their count anew, ready to gather, to separate, to spark again. The storm's story is endless, its counting continues. And the sky keeps speaking in flashes and whispers, in silence and light. Clouds that count the lightning are the heartbeats of the sky. They tell us the storm's secrets. They hold the rhythm of the world. High above the earth, where the air thins and the sky grows wide, the wind begins to whisper in a language only the clouds understand. These are not ordinary breezes but electric winds, currents charged with unseen energy that move silently across the atmosphere. They carry with them the breath of storms yet to come and the memory of lightning long past. The whisper of electric winds is subtle, soft as silk, yet it holds the power to shape the very clouds themselves. Imagine standing beneath a darkening sky, the air growing still and heavy, as if the world is holding its breath. The wind seems to pause, waiting, listening. Somewhere high above, invisible currents gather strength, swirling and folding in patterns shaped by temperature, pressure, and the Earth's own breath. These charged winds flow between layers of clouds, carrying ions and tiny particles, fragments of dust, droplets of moisture, and whispers of charge. Within these moving layers, water droplets and ice crystals dance to a hidden rhythm, spinning and colliding in the current's embrace. The electric winds guide them, pushing some upward into colder heights, pulling others downward into warmer layers. Each movement shifts the balance of charge within the cloud, separating positive and negative like dancers circling in a slow, silent ballet. The whisper of the winds is the storm's quiet voice, its breath before the lightning's roar. Scientists who study storms call this movement the electrified updraft, a place where warm, moist air rises charged with energy, carrying the storm's heart higher into the sky. It is here that the cloud grows tall and dense, building layers of charge separated by wind and temperature. The electric winds swirl and twist, weaving currents that charge droplets and ice in their passage. Every breath of these winds adds to the storm's potential, each whisper a step toward the inevitable spark. The earth below senses these changes, though it cannot see the currents or hear the whispers. Trees seem to lean into the wind differently, animals pause in their tracks, and the scent of ozone drifts faintly in the air, a sign that electricity is gathering. The atmosphere becomes a thin veil between stillness and motion, charged and waiting. The whisper of electric winds carries the promise of lightning, a secret hum beneath the quiet. These winds move not just inside one cloud but between clouds, linking distant parts of a storm or even separate storms across the sky. They are invisible threads that connect droplets and particles over miles, carrying charge and energy across vast distances. This unseen dance shapes how storms grow, how lightning finds its path, and how rain falls in gentle showers or fierce torrents. The whisper is everywhere, soft, persistent, full of life. And yet, for all their power, electric winds move with grace. They do not rush or roar but flow smoothly, like a river of air weaving through the sky. Their currents shape the clouds gently, lifting and shaping with patient hands. They are the breath of the storm, the quiet song beneath the thunder, the rhythm of charge building in the vastness above. You may not hear the whisper yourself, but if you are very still, very patient, you might feel it on your skin, a gentle tingling, a soft pull, a subtle shift in the air. It is the wind's quiet breath, carrying the weight of electricity and moisture, the gathering of storms waiting to speak. It is a secret language, ancient and true, written in the moving currents of charged air. This whisper is the beginning, the breath held just before the storm becomes voice. It is the Aleh. Citric wind's song, a lullaby of charge and motion, preparing the sky for lightning's light and thunder's voice. And though we cannot see it, this whisper shapes every storm's story, every flash of lightning, every drop of rain that falls from the sky. The electric winds breathes, and the sky listens. Now let's drift deeper into the secret world of the electric winds, the currents that carry the storm's invisible heartbeat through the sky. These winds flow between layers of air, weaving through clouds and stretching across vast distances, unseen but ever present. They are the silent messengers of charge, carrying positive and negative particles in a delicate balance that shapes the storm's breath. Inside the towering clouds, the electric winds move like gentle rivers, twisting and swirling through pockets of moisture and ice. They lift droplets high into colder regions where they freeze, shaping hailstones and snowflakes with slow, precise care. At the same time, these currents push other droplets downward into warmer layers, where they remain liquid, still charged with the memory of collisions and charge exchanges that ripple through the cloud. Each movement matters. As droplets and ice crystals swirl and bump against one another, they exchange tiny fragments of electricity. Positive charges cling to the lighter particles, rising on the breath of the wind, while negative charges gather in heavier hail and denser droplets pulled downward. This separation of charge is the invisible counting that builds tension, the hidden rhythm that prepares the sky for its electric song. The electric winds are patient architects. They do not force the storm to erupt but nurture its growth through steady motion and careful balance. They shape the cloud's form and charge distribution with a quiet hand, smoothing the edges of turbulence and guiding the paths of droplets in the storm's heart. Their breath is steady, deep, slow, a lullaby sung in currents of air and electricity. Beyond the cloud itself, these winds connect storms across miles of sky. They carry charge and moisture between distant clouds, linking separate systems in a vast electric dance. Lightning can travel from one cloud to another, sparked along these invisible threads woven by the winds. The atmosphere is alive with this silent network, a web of breath and charge that pulses with the rhythm of storms. On the earth below, the presence of these electric winds is felt in subtle ways. The air tingles with a quiet energy. The scent of ozone drifts faintly on the breeze. Animals pause, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Leaves shiver, branches sway with a new purpose. The wind carries the story of the storm's growing power, whispering it to every living thing. As the electric winds swirl and pulse, the cloud's charge grows stronger. Layers of positive and negative charge separate further, stretching the electric field between cloud and ground. This tension is the breath held before the spark, the silence before the storm speaks. The winds carry not just moisture and air but the very essence of potential, threading it through the sky like a delicate seam. In this moment, the world feels balanced on a knife's edge. The electric winds hum softly, their currents a quiet conversation between cloud and earth, between storm and calm. The charged particles dance on invisible currents, waiting for the moment when the breath will be released in a flash of lightning. This whispering wind, so soft and subtle, holds the promise of light. It is the breath of the storm, the song beneath thunder, the pulse of electricity waiting to leap. Though unseen, it is felt everywhere, in the chill that raises goosebumps, in the silence that falls just before the sky breaks, in the trembling breath of the air itself. And so the storm breathes deeper, carried on the whisper of electric winds, gathering its strength with every turn, every swirl, every quiet touch of charged air. The winds carry the storm's secret, a gentle breath held in the vastness above, waiting for the sky to speak. And finally, the whisper of electric winds becomes a roar. The breath held too long is released in a brilliant flash of lightning. As the storm reaches its crescendo, the currents of charged air come alive with motion, threading through the clouds in sparkling ribbons of energy. These winds, once soft and subtle, now carry the storm's voice across the sky, lighting the darkness with their electric song. The lightning leaps along the channels carved by the whispering winds, faster than the eye can follow, hotter than the surface of the sun. It moves from cloud to ground, cloud to cloud, tracing the invisible pathways shaped by the electric currents. Each flash is a bright exhale, a release of tension built over hours and miles, a burst of energy that reminds the world of the power held in those silent winds. Thunder follows, rolling and rumbling across hills and valleys, the sound of air expanding violently after being heated by the lightning's path. It is the storm's voice, echoing the song of the electric winds. The roar fades slowly, leaving behind a lingering sense of awe and wonder. Rain begins to fall, heavy and steady or light and gentle, washing the earth with droplets born from the clouds stirred by the winds. The moisture cools the air, softens the world, and carries the memory of the storm's breath into the soil, the rivers, and the roots of plants. Each drop is a reminder of the journey the electric winds took, the slow, patient gathering before the storm's release. As the storm wanes, the winds soften again. The electric currents slow and fade, returning to their quiet whisper. The clouds thin and drift, their charge spent, their breath released. The sky brightens, and the world exhales with relief and renewal. Yet the whisper remains, a faint tingling in the air, a soft scent of ozone, a reminder that the storm's breath still moves unseen. It carries the promise of new storms, new light, new rain. It is the endless cycle of breath and silence, tension and release, the rhythm of the sky itself. If you stand still after the storm passes, you might feel the electric winds stirring gently once more, weaving through the quiet air. You might hear their whisper in the rustling leaves, feel it in the coolness against your skin. Though invisible, they are always there, carrying the memory of lightning, the breath of storms, the pulse of nature. The whisper of electric winds is the secret language of the sky, spoken softly but powerfully. It is the breath before the storm, the song beneath the thunder, the rhythm that connects cloud and earth. And as the winds continue to whisper, the sky listens and waits to speak again. In the vast theater of the sky, where clouds gather and storms prepare their grand performance, there lies a secret pulse, a quiet rhythm that beats beneath the thunder and before the lightning. This pulse is not heard but felt, a subtle vibration that courses through the charged air, weaving its way among droplets and ice crystals, setting the stage for the brilliant light that will soon follow. It is the heartbeat of the storm's unseen life, the slow and steady breath of electric tension. Imagine the sky on a restless afternoon, heavy with humidity and shadowed by towering clouds. Invisible to the eye, tiny particles dance in the thickening air, colliding gently, exchanging fragments of charge like whispered messages. Each collision nudges the balance between positive and negative, shaping a field of tension that grows with every passing moment. This buildup is the pulse, the storm's slow gathering of breath. Inside the cloud, droplets rise and fall on unseen currents, caught between warmth and cold, liquid and ice. They spin and tumble, carrying with them pieces of the storm's memory, charged fragments that drift through the cloud's vast expanse. This pulse moves through them, a rhythm of collision and separation, creating layers of electric potential stretched across the sky. The air itself seems to hum with this energy, charged and waiting. If you could listen closely, you might hear the faintest echo of the storm's breath, a quiet beat that pulses just beneath the roar of thunder. It is a rhythm that guides the storm, setting the timing for the first spark, the first leap of lightning from cloud to earth. Scientists studying storms have found that this pulse is tied to the complex dance of charges within the cloud. Positive and negative particles separate, creating an electric field strong enough to push past the insulating properties of air. The pulse grows stronger as the charge difference increases, a slow crescendo building to a flash of brilliant light. This rhythm is not sudden but steady, a measured beat that the storm keeps with patience. It is shaped by temperature gradients, wind shear, and the endless collisions of droplets and ice. The storm listens to its own pulse, timing its moments of release with this invisible metronome. Below, the earth responds in kind. Positive charges gather along rooftops, trees, and hills, reaching upward in silent readiness. The space between cloud and ground grows charged, and the pulse extends its reach. It is a connection, a conversation of energy and potential waiting to become something more. The pulse of lightning's secret is a dance of balance and anticipation. It carries the storm's memory and its promise, the breath held just before the flash. It is the slow heartbeat behind the sky's most dramatic moments. As the storm gathers strength, this pulse becomes the invisible rhythm of nature itself, a steady song of charge and release, of breath held and let go. It is the pulse that precedes every flash, the quiet before the storm's voice. And though we cannot see this rhythm, we are touched by it, in the sudden crack of lightning, in the rolling thunder, in the soft rain that follows. The pulse is everywhere, the secret beat of the storm's heart. It waits, it builds, it pulses. And then it lights the sky. Let's drift deeper into the pulse itself, the quiet rhythm pulsing through the storm's heart, weaving between droplets and ice, carrying charge across the cloud's vast chambers. This pulse is not a simple beat but a complex pattern, shaped by countless collisions and currents flowing through the storm's ever-changing breath. It moves with the cloud's breath, rising and falling in waves, a hidden music beneath the storm's roar. Inside the cloud, droplets and ice crystals collide endlessly, each impact a tiny exchange of charge. Positive charges cling to smaller particles, lifted by rising air, while heavier, negatively charged hailstones sink through the cloud's depths. This separation of charge is the rhythm's source, the steady beat growing stronger as layers form and currents twist. The pulse travels through these layers, carrying energy that builds tension like a tightly drawn string. The storm's breath swells with this pulse, held steady by the cloud's intricate dance of wind and moisture. Updrafts spiral, carrying charged particles higher, while downdrafts pull others downward, balancing motion and charge in a delicate harmony. The pulse guides this movement, like a conductor directing an unseen orchestra, shaping how energy flows and where it gathers. This rhythm is not random but precise, timed by the laws of physics and nature's subtle rules. Each beat of the pulse moves energy closer to the point where the electric field between cloud and ground can no longer hold it back. The storm listens to its own heartbeat, knowing when to hold, when to build, when to release. Beneath the storm, the earth responds. Positive charges rise from soil, trees, and buildings, drawn upward by the cloud's negative base. The space between sky and earth becomes a charged bridge, stretching with every pulse, a silent conversation waiting for the spark that will complete the circuit. The pulse influences more than just lightning. It shapes the storm's growth, its movement, the rhythm of rain falling softly or fiercely upon the earth. It guides intracloud flashes, lightning that dances inside the cloud itself, helping shift charge and ease tension while the storm prepares for a greater release. Scientists use advanced instruments to capture this pulse, high-speed cameras, sensors, and radio detectors that reveal the hidden rhythms of storms. They see how the pulse fluctuates with every collision and movement inside the cloud, how it signals the moments before lightning's leap. This understanding helps unlock the storm's secret language, turning invisible energy into knowledge. Though unseen, the pulse is felt. It tingles on the skin, raising hairs and quickening breath. It alters the air's scent with a faint hint of ozone. It hushes the world into quiet anticipation. It is the storm's breath held long, the heartbeat that tells the sky when to sing. And as the pulse grows stronger, the storm moves closer to its moment of release, a flash of lightning that lights the world and a roar of thunder that follows. The pulse is the secret rhythm of the storm's power, the steady beat before the sky breaks open. In this rhythm, the storm finds balance between tension and release, between breath held and breath exhaled. It is the pulse that makes lightning possible, the song beneath the storm's voice. The pulse continues, unseen but alive, guiding the storm's breath, shaping its light. And we wait with it in the rhythm of the sky. And then when the pulse reaches its crescendo, the storm finally speaks aloud. The invisible rhythm that has built within the cloud and stretched across the space between earth and sky bursts forth in a brilliant flash of lightning. The leader, a jagged finger of negative charge, races downward, searching, branching, feeling its way through the charged air. The positive streamer, reaching upward from the earth, meets it. In that moment, the channel forms and the storm's breath is released. Lightning races along the newly formed path, faster than light can follow, hotter than the sun's surface. The return stroke floods the channel with energy, lighting the sky in a brilliant ribbon of electric fire. The pulse that was once silent becomes visible, a surge of power that splits the darkness and etches its story across the clouds. Thunder follows, a deep rolling echo that ripples across hills and valleys. It is the sound of air expanding rapidly, heated by the lightning's passage. This roar is the voice of the pulse, the breath exhaled after the long hold. It is a reminder of the storm's secret rhythm, the balance between tension and release, between stillness and motion. Yet the pulse does not end with one flash. The storm continues its heartbeat, cycling through tension and release again and again. Each strike is a note in the storm's song, a part of its ongoing rhythm. The breath held is released, then held once more as the pulse guides the storm's dance. Rain begins to fall, steady and soft or heavy and driving, washing the earth and carrying the storm's memory to roots and rivers. The droplets are carriers of the pulse, droplets born from the breath of the cloud, shaped by its breath and charge. They soften the world, bringing renewal after the storm's light and sound. As the storm winds down, the pulse slows. The electric charge separates less fiercely, the currents of wind and moisture calm, and the clouds begin to thin and drift away. The rhythm of tension and release fades into quiet, leaving behind a world refreshed and hushed. But the pulse remains, stored in the cycles of earth and sky. It is a part of the endless dance of weather and life, a heartbeat that will rise again with the next storm, the next breath of the sky. The rhythm of lightning's secret continues, unseen yet always present, shaping the world in light and shadow. If you listen closely, if you feel the sky's breath, you can sense this pulse, the steady, silent heartbeat of storms. It is the song before the spark, the breath before the flash, the quiet rhythm that connects earth and sky. The pulse waits. The storm breathes. And the lightning lights the sky once more.